Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. We're going to swatch some inks today, and the color family that I am starting with is going to be Blurple inks, otherwise known as blue plus purple inks, or purple inks that lean a bit more blue, blue inks that lean a bit more purple. It's kind of a broad range, honestly. I have 17 inks. Yes, 17. And we are going to be swatching them all today in this notebook. Quick disclaimer, these are Blurple inks to me personally. It is not necessary. They may come across a little bit more purple or a little bit more blue on camera. I will do my best to describe them as I see them and how I have used them and things like that. But yeah, let's just jump into supplies really quick. I'm still in my A5 blank Hobonichi notebook here. I'm going to be writing with my Sailor Hokoro dip pen. I'm going to be swatching with my typical thing here, which is a little MU stamp block that I got off of Jet Pens. I have a pipette that I will be dropping the inks with. T-shirt over here for like a cloth, jars of water, all the good stuff. And yeah, I'm just excited to jump straight into this. And the ink we're actually going to start with is a mixed ink. So I don't really, I kind of want to make this like the base for Blurple because this one is really very Blurple. And it is a mix of Waterman's Serenity Blue and Tender Purple. So both Waterman inks, and it is a 1-to-1 ratio. So I have 1 ml of Serenity Blue in here and 1 ml of Tender Purple, just to kind of give us a base of what Blurple actually looks like. All that being said, Blurple is a purple color that has a slight blue undertone, or a blue color that has a purple lean. There's probably a million ways you could describe what a Blurple ink looks like, but to me, Waterman Blurple, this mix anyways, is a very nice, easygoing ink. Waterman inks are very well known for their gentle properties, especially in like vintage pens. So if you were looking for a really good Blurple, maybe to put in something you're a little bit cautious of cleaning, maybe try this out. Just get a couple of bottles of Waterman ink or a couple of samples, mix it up and see how you feel. This ink behaves beautifully. There's not really a whole lot of exciting things going on with it. It's just a nice standard flat color. Typically with Serenity Blue, there is a mild red sheen, and with Tender Purple, there is a mild green sheen. But when I mix these two together, I haven't gotten a sheen out of it. So it could just be my mix, but I've never gotten a sheen or anything, even though the original inks do have a very minor haloing sheen to them. The next ink I'm going to swatch is a very dark color, but to me it is still Blurple. Kind of can tell by the sticker on the top. This is Van Diemen's Birds of a Feather Mandarin Duck Breast. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this ink, specifically because it is incredibly high sheening, and the sheen turns almost like a golden color. All that being said, this ink is really fun, and it is a bit more extravagant, and it is a really nice dark color in the base. So the base of this is what I would consider a Blurple black. It is very, very dark, has navy hints in it. It is a bit more blue violet. Yeah, it really is just a nice darker Blurple color. The sheen is gold, so when the sheen does show up, which it is very prevalent, it almost looks kind of like an iridescent, like an iridescent duck wing. If you have like a dark duck wing like the Mandarin ducks here, I think this is a really great representation of what they were going for in terms of like the breast feathers of those ducks. And it is a really nice ink. It behaves pretty well. It's just a high sheener, so it may not be for everyone out there. Next, we have an ink that is a bit newer to me and also a bit on the pricey side, and this is Journalize Hecate, and this is from the whimsical line of these inks, and I consider this a Blurple because it is a softer lavender color. However, it does have a bit more of a pinkness to it than I would say most of the other inks I'm going to be swatching today, but I wanted to include a lighter Blurple option, which I do have a few more, but no, Blurple doesn't have to be just like this dark color. Blurple can also be in like a lighter color, or even, you know, the Blurple black that we just did with the Mandarin Duck Breast. This one has a nice kind of Blurple softness to it, a soft lavender look. The only thing that would probably set this one to the side as well is the shimmer in this ink, and that is kind of a rose gold color. So it does make the base of this ink look a bit more pink than it actually is. If you take this ink up without any of the shimmer, it looks very much like a soft Blurple or a good lavender base color. Next up, we have the only Birmingham Pen Company ink I'm going to be including, and I had to kind of narrow this one down actually, but this is Pop Art Purple. And much like its neighbor Waterman Blurple, it is very much a Blurple color in that it is a bit more blue and a bit more purple, and it is in the medium tone range. This ink, however, does have a bit more shading than Blurple does at the top there, and I feel that it just behaves beautifully. I'm a really big fan of Birmingham Pen Company inks. I know they are only available in the US, so it does make it a bit more challenging to get them elsewhere. But if you do get your hands on one, I feel like every time, I don't know, I feel like they're just one of those unicorn inks that they behave really well. Although I have noticed on some of the bad batches of the Sanzen Tomoe paper, these inks are just a little too wet and they bleed through. But again, I think that's the paper problem we've been having in 2025, not necessarily the inks, because these inks have behaved beautifully on everything else for as long as I have used them. Next up, we have a newer ink to me that I consider a Blurple. I have not put this in a pen yet though, so I can't really speak to writing, but this is Krishna Orchids. And something cool about this one is it starts off as this kind of more standard purple color, and then as it dries, it pulls through a lot more of the blue tones in the ink. It's really, really pretty. I can't really speak to behavior on this one, just again, because it's so new to me. I haven't been able to play with it as much, but it is a beautiful color and it fits in this color family for me, and that's why I really wanted to include it. Next up, we have a pretty famous Blurple, I would say, and this is Lamy Azurite. And this is part of the Crystal series from Lamy. It's a bit more expensive for the ink quantity that you're getting, but quality is fantastic on these. This ink is so much fun. It is a dark Blurple color, has this wild green sheen, almost like a neon green sheen or a neon yellow sheen, that kind of pulls through pretty fast. I will say in writing, the sheen isn't as prevalent in like finer nibbed pens that I've used it with, but when I get into like the mediums and broads, the sheen definitely pulls through a bit more. So I think if you have a very juicy pen, you're going to get more of the sheen, which would make sense since it's pulling out more of the ink properties because there's more ink being laid down. But overall, if you have like a really dry pen, you don't get a whole lot of the sheen with this one for me personally. The color though, really wild, really cool. Highly recommend if you've never tried this to get a sample of Azurite, just because it is such a fun ink, and I don't know, it just adds a little bit of dimension to probably inks that if you've never tried something like this before. Next up, we have a Sailor ink, and this is Shikiori's Potsupotsu. And Sailor does have a few Blurples in their ranges of inks. This is just the one that I picked because it's my favorite right now. And it's mainly just the name. It's just fun to say. Potsupotsu, I don't know. But the color of this is a darker Blurple. It's a great everyday color, honestly. It does have a slight, I want to say it was like a dark blue to even a black kind of halo-y sheen thing going on with it. Also has a little bit of shading, nothing extravagant. It's pretty soft in terms of the shading. It's not like super light to super dark or anything, but it is just a really fun, nice color. It is Sailor. Sailor is really well known for good behaving inks, and I agree with that statement. And yeah, it's just a great ink. They are a bit pricier just because it is a Japanese ink, but it's really nice. It's a fun color, has a fun name, it fits in the Blurple category. It just deserves to be here. Next up, we have Monteverde's Tanzanite, and I really wanted to put this one close to Azurite because I feel they are very similar. So this ink is a very bright Blurple, or a bright blue violet. It does also have a bit of a wild sheen to it that turns a bit more of like a yellowy green color, which is why I feel it's very close to Azurite. But consistency wise, this ink is very wet. I've actually been having some, I don't want to say issues, but maybe some one-offs with my Monteverde inks, especially on the new Sanzen Tomoe paper, that they've just been, I guess, a little bit not, they've been bleeding through and feathering a lot more than they have on other papers in the past. So again, I think it's a paper issue, not an ink issue, but just know that Tanzanite is a very wet ink. It does have really great viscosity, like it's very flowy. It's just, it might not do well on certain papers because of that aspect. However, if you have a very dry pen, this might be a great, addition to that ink, or like put this ink in a really dry pen, because then you're going to kind of even out the flow with the pen, and it might be a bit more normal versus super dry or super wet. I hope that made sense. But yeah, I really wanted to include this one right next to this little group of inks because I feel like it's very, very similar. Next up is another Van Diemen's ink, and this one is called Twilight Mist from their Night series. This ink is very cool, although it may not be considered a blurple to some. So the base color of this is almost like a regular blue color, but it does have a purple shade, and the shimmer in it is also a purple color, so it adds to the purpleness of the ink. Really interesting. Also, this ink, it's like Colorverse Martian, which I know is not at all in this color family. That's an orange ink, but it has just kind of this off look to it, but it's attractive. Like it's interesting to look at. Almost like it's not quite right, but it's there. Very similar to looking at Twilight through mist, where it's kind of hazy a little bit. I don't know. I'm just really fascinated with this ink. I've been really having a lot of fun with my Van Diemen inks in general, but this one is just really cool. I love the base color with the purple shimmer. I think it's a really fun addition, and I do believe this is the new formulation of this one, and there is an older formulation, but I believe this one is the new. So if you were to pick up this ink, this is what it would look like for you. Next up, we have another shimmering ink, and this is Dominant Industries Dusk. And this one might be a bit more blue-gray blurple. The color is kind of interesting. So I keep this ink with my blues, but it also has a bit of a purpleness to it, and it also has a bit of a grayness to it. So it's kind of one of those really interesting colors that is hard to kind of place into one group. And I honestly wanted to include it in the blurples because it has some blurple quality, and it is a lighter blurply-like color. Kind of like a dusty blurple. It's really pretty. The shimmer in this is a bit more of like a, I'd say, silver champagne-y color. It's really nice. It blends well with the ink. It's soft. It's subtle. Dominant Industry Pearl inks are really great in general. I do find them to be a bit more expensive for the quantity that you're getting, but if you really like the brand and you really like the colors they offer, I think it's a good choice. Then we have another shimmer ink, and this is a Pennonia and Scriptus collaboration, and it's called Lights of Niagara. And this is another one of those lighter inks, lighter blurples, and this one's actually pretty true neon blurple. It's beautiful. This is a newer ink to me, much like the Krishna Orchids on the other page, so I have not been able to put this one into pen yet, but I'm very excited to kind of work with this hopefully in the summer because it is such a bright, beautiful color. It has this almost, I don't know, periwinkle shimmer in it. It has an interesting color shimmer with the base color being a bit more of like a light blurple or a lavendery color. It does lean a bit more blue, I would say, than some of the other inks we've done already, but it just fits here, and it's really pretty, and it's really vibrant, and it's really fun, and yeah, I feel like it just belongs. It just belongs. Next up, we have another Van Diemen's ink, and this is one of the limited edition 2024 inks from their box, and this one is the October ink. I'm not sure if this one fits here, but I wanted to kind of compare it to everything else that we've done already. So the base color of this one is a bit more of like a purpley gray situation, and it starts off pretty dark and then it dries a little bit lighter. And the shimmer in this is almost like a tealish color. So I feel like with the shimmer, it looks a little bit more blurple, but without the shimmer, it looks pretty regular purple. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I just wanted to include it here because I wanted to see how it compared to some of the other inks. It is a really fun ink. I consider this like a mermaidy ink. I think it was like a disco ball or something, or some kind of sunset or something in the box. I don't remember what kind of symbol they used for it, but it's a really fun, nice color. It has an interesting shimmer with an interesting base. I just think it's interesting enough to include in the blurples, even if it doesn't fit firmly in this category. I just think it's a nice kind of purpley color that has a more fun shimmer in it. That's a tealish blue color. Next up, we have Solar Storm by Diamine, and I think this one is from the green ink vent, the 2022 one. And this is very dark, so this is like a dark blurple black again, and then shimmer in this one is multiple colors. It's another one of the chameleon inks from Diamine. Really interesting. One of the ones I debated on getting a full bottle of, but ended up just settling for the small bottle because I haven't been using it enough to really kind of tell myself I deserve a full bottle of it. This ink is just fantastically interesting to look at. It is a very nice dark color, so I feel like it's a great everyday writing color, but it does have some really wild things going on. So it has a little bit of like a reddish brown, reddish black sheen. It has almost green, gold, and blue shimmer in it. And the base color, like I said, is a bit more of a blurple black color, but it leans slightly more purple. It's not as blurple as the Mandarin Duck Breast by Van Dieman's on the other page, but it does kind of fit with this color family, even though it is slightly more purple. There's lots of blue tone in this ink. And the fact that it's so dark, again, I feel is really beneficial, especially for those of us that write with a darker color. I also feel like this ink would fit into like an off black kind of category with a little bit of fun shimmer going on, but I wanted to include it in blurples just because it's, I don't know, it fits in the blurples for me. Then we have another Blurple slash Blurple Black, and this is from the Colorverse Color Vent of 2024. This was not one of the colors that made it, unfortunately. This is Neptune Occultation, and the sticker kind of gives away the actual color of this ink. There was another ink from this color vent that is almost exactly the same color of this, and that is Kilonova. Again, neither of them made it to the main 3 that were being released fully, so I just picked the one that I felt was a little bit more purple, and Neptune Occultation kind of won out. This ink is very dark. It is Blurple Black to the max, but the main thing about this ink is it sheens almost entirely. So it has this black sheen on top of a Blurple Black color. It's very interesting. Flow-wise, it feels really good out of dip nibs. That's what I used it for my full pages when I was doing the color vent back in December. And I feel like it behaved really well. It gives me high hope for putting it in a pen someday. But again, it's one of those super high sheening inks, which I'm not always a fan of. I like when the base color pops through a bit more. And I feel like with this one, I'm not going to get that because of how much it sheened. Yeah, it's really pretty though. Another great standard legible color. I feel like this would be a really great everyday writing color for some people. It's just a nice dark blurple black. There's blue, there's purple, there's black. It just, yeah, it's a blurple ink. It's just on the very darker, like on the very dark end of blurples. Next we have a Ferris press ink, and this is Harlequin Dream. And I love this ink from Ferris Press, specifically because of the shading. It is a blurple color, but it has a very soft blurpleness to it, very similar to that of like the Twilight Mist, just minus the shimmer. But the color of this is a bit darker and the shading is much stronger. I feel like you get a lot of range from like light to dark with this one, especially if you're using a very juicy writer. It's just a really pretty color, and it's nice and soft and dreamy. I feel like the name fits it. I'm a fan. It's blurple, it has blue tones, it has purple tones, it's kind of in the middle range, and it has really great shading. It is a bit dry, which again is common with Ferris Press inks. If you are new to that brand, a lot of their inks do have a bit more of a dryness to them, but don't let that turn you off. These inks are very easy to kind of manipulate with white lining, and they are also easy to put into really wet flowing pens if you want to get an average flow out of the ink. Next, I have a Goulet Pens exclusive ink here, and this is by Colorverse, and it's Witch by Starlight. As you can see, it has this beautiful iridescent shimmer on the bottom here, so I'm a huge fan of this ink. The only thing with this one is it may not actually be a blurple. I consider this blurple because with the shimmer, it looks blurple to me. So, all this aside, the base color of this is a bit more of like a blue-black color, has a slight, I guess, green look to it. In person, it's a lot more blue, and in cameras, it's always a bit more green. I don't know. It's just the way it kind of shows up. But the shimmer in this has that kind of silvery, iridescent, like lavendery purple look to it. It's so pretty. And I will say I put this in a fine nibbed pilot pen long time ago, and I had such a fun time with it. I used up my entire sample of the ink and immediately just went and decided to get a bottle because it's such a beautiful color. So this one may not fit in blurple for everybody, but personally for me it fits in blurple, and in person the ink looks a little bit different than it does on camera, just because I feel like the camera pulls out a lot more of the green tones in this ink for some reason, whereas in person it looks a lot more blue, a lot more blurple, a lot more blue blackish kind of situation. And lastly, we are going to end off with probably my favorite Blurple of all time. And it's probably just a behavior ink on like the way this ink behaves, but this is Pilot Iroshizuku's Ajisai. And I say this is a favorite Blurple specifically because it's just the perfect Blurple color for me. It has blue, it has slight purple undertone. The flow on the Iroshizuku line of inks is just out of this world. I love this ink. This was actually the first bottle of, well, okay, not the first bottle of the Iroshizuku line I got, but the first bottle I got after having a sample of the ink. So the first bottle of Iroshizuku I ever got was Inaho, but that was because it was discontinued and I was like, I need to buy a bottle of this now. Anyways, this was probably like my second, if not third bottle of the Iroshizuku line that I got because I was so obsessed with this color after getting a sample of it and I just loved it so much. But yeah, I love this color. It's my favorite Blurple. It behaves well. It looks great. It's just a wonderful ink. Okay, that is all of the Blurple inks I have for today. There are a lot of Blurple inks out there, so if I could swatch them all on 2 pages, I think I would try, but I don't have I don't have the time and I don't have the energy for that. But anyways, this is what I have for now. I'm gonna let these finish drying. I'm gonna come back in probably about 10 minutes and hopefully everything's done and we can zoom in. I'll talk a bit more about like what I see versus what the camera sees, since a lot of times the camera pulls out a lot more of the blue and gets rid of the red, so these probably look really blue to you guys. But yeah, I'll be back probably in about 10 minutes and we will zoom in then. Okay, I am back. Let's go ahead and look at these super close and chat a bit more about the colors that I'm seeing versus what the camera sees. So starting off, we had the Blurple from Waterman. So this is a combination of 1-to-1 Serenity Blue and Tender Purple. Truly looks very Blurple on camera. I'd say in person it is slightly more red than this, just slightly though. And what's interesting is you see this red sheen for you guys. To me, it looks yellow. And I've never had a sheen with this one before, so that's so interesting that the kind of color shift based on in person and on camera, it looks so different. Then we have Van Dieman's Mandarin Duck Breast. Again, this is a very nice dark Blurple black. The sheen is golden, as you can probably tell, but it looks very dark. The whole thing typically does sheen for me. I usually don't get any kind of like variation in the letters, so not an ink I usually reach for, but I wanted to include it because it is a great Blurple option. Then we have Journalize Hecate. I feel like this ink is a bit pricey for, I guess, what you're getting, but it is a beautiful color. It is a nice soft lavender base, which is kind of like a light Blurple in a way, and the rose gold champagne shimmer that this has is absolutely beautiful. I really love this ink. It's beautiful, but I think price-wise, it's not really worth it to me personally. Then we have Birmingham Penguin's Pop Art Purple. Great Blurple edition. I feel like on certain papers this ink does pull slightly different colors just because of the different dyes in the Birmingham Pen Company inks. This one is very nice and shady too. In person it has a slight more of a red tone to it as well. It's not as blue as it's showing on camera, but it is really nice. And then we have Krishna Orchids, which this one has again that kind of like golden sheen, but it's a bit more green in person, and the ink itself looks a little bit more blue on camera than it does in person too. Again, very common for me with my camera. For some reason it just like, you know, negates any red and purples. So a lot of these look very blue, but I promise you they are a bit more purple in person. Then we had Lamy Azurite. Seriously, just a cool ink. If you have not tried this, I highly recommend getting a sample and just giving it a go. It is a great everyday, like a dark color. It is Blurple blue purple. It has this wild green sheen on it. The sheen isn't overpowering. It's just a really fun ink, and I don't know, I feel like everyone needs to try it at least once. Then we had on the bottom here, Sailor Shikiori Potsupotsu. Looks really great and accurate from in person and on camera actually. In the sheen, it's a bit more of like that reddish brown color. Great everyday Blurple color. No complaints here. Then we have Monteverde's Tanzanite. I really wanted to compare Azurite and Tanzanite together. Azurite is much darker, Tanzanite is much brighter, and the sheens are a bit different. The sheen here on Tanzanite is a yellow color, although on camera it's kind of looking reddish. That's so interesting. But it is very yellow in person, and the flow on the Monteverde ink is much more viscous, so much more flowy, much more watery feeling than that of the Azurite. Then we have Van Diemen's Twilight Mist. Seriously, one of my most interesting inks right now. I just am really obsessed with this ink for some reason. I love the kind of off look that it has. You can see that beautiful kind of purpley shimmer with the base color being a bit more blue, almost like a blue shifting to purple situation. It's very, very pretty. I really like this one too, and I do believe this is the new formulation. Then we had Dominant Industries Dusk, which is part of their Pearl series. It looks a bit more gray on camera. In person, it is a bit more of like a soft, like lavender periwinkle color. With the shading, it goes a bit darker into that grayness, and then the shimmer again is a bit more like a rose gold champagne-y situation, similar to the Hecate, but as you can see, a lot less pink. The Hecate shimmer is much more pink coppery. The Dusk shimmer is much more of like a soft silvery pink, champagne-y, if you will. Then we had Pennonia and Scriptus, Lights of Niagara. Really just, this ink is so cool. I really am excited to play with this one a bit more. I love the kind of periwinkle blue shimmer that this has with the base color. I think I like this so much because of my favorite Blurple at the bottom here being Ajisai. This is like a brighter version of it with shimmer, so it's exciting. I don't know, I really like it. And then we had Van Diemen's October from the 2024 limited editions. I love this ink too. It's very mermaid-esque. I don't really feel like it fits in the Blurple category now that it has firmly dried down. It is pretty just like a dusty purple with a green teal shimmer. Still really, really pretty though. Then we had Diamine Solar Storm. As you can see, the base color of this is very Blurple, and it does look like this in person. It has this kind of reddish-brown sheen, and the shimmer is showing gold right now. But if I can get it to go to this kind of green, yeah, there we go. It has this also greenish teal color too. So it's a really pretty wild ink. It's definitely very interesting. One of my favorites from that ink vent for sure. Then we have Colorverse Neptune Occultation, which I'm happy to see that the sheen did not overpower on the Sanzen paper. So that gives me really high hopes that it would, I don't know, maybe it's just this sheet. Yeah, I don't know, but it does have this nice black red sheen with the dark blue black, almost a blue black blurple, blue black purple base. Really nice. I'm not a huge fan of this one just because it is not really my cup of tea in terms of the sheeniness, but I do think it is a really great addition to have a nice range of colors for the Blurple color family. Then we have Harlequin Dream by Ferris. Again, another one of my favorite Blurples. I just love the shading in this one. It's so pretty. It has a bit more of a pinkness to it, I'd say, in person, and on camera it's coming a bit more blue again, but it's really, really nice with the shading. A little dry, but I really do like the shade of this color. Then we have a Colorverse Witch by Starlight, which looks very teal on camera for some reason, and in person looks a lot more like a navy blue. But the shimmer on this is really what sells it for me. It's like this iridescent silverness. It has this almost like, you know, dark Blurple black halo thing going on. It's a really fun ink. I really enjoy this ink. And it does look different on different papers. I have found that out. So it may look teal to you guys on camera, but I promise you in person, it's a bit more of this color actually. So I don't know. It's just an interesting ink all around. And then my favorite Blurple here, which is Ajisai by Pilot Iroshizuku, looks very blue on camera, but it does have a bit more of a purple pull to it in person, and it is very bright, very legible, very well flowing, just overall great behaving ink. That is all that I have for the Blurple inks today. I would love to hear any Blurple recommendations you guys have in the comments. I would say that Blurples are kind of hard to pin down, especially from what the color could actually be considered to each person individually. Some may consider a blue a bit more Blurple or a purple a bit more Blurple. It just depends on the person. So definitely put those down in the comments if you have a favorite Blurple in your collection or a favorite Blurple that you've tried. Or if you've mixed something like my Blurple up here that has just worked really well for you, we'd love to hear that too. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully I can do some more colors here in the next couple of weeks. I really enjoy doing my more color series. I feel like it's a great way to kind of compare what's out there and see what maybe would work better for somebody depending on what they see. But yeah, I wish you all the best. Be blessed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.